and welcome to Beyond the Label. This month is Autism Acceptance Month, and Faithful Minds Initiative is leading a social media campaign to educate our community about autism, to learn more about it, and just to know how to support the community better. So today we have with us Miss Josie Adeoye, and she is going to be giving us a little bit of her perspective working with kids with autism. Hi, Josie. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here.
So tell us a little bit about what you do and your background with kids with autism.
Yeah, so my name is Josie. I am a medical speech language pathologist. I work closely with children on the autism spectrum. I help them communicate their wants and needs, and also in regards to whether it's, making a gesture or pointing. Those are things that we mainly focus on, building their language, improving social interaction, and everything of that nature.
So what exactly is a speech pathologist for anyone out there that that's not really familiar with that career path? What is a speech pathologist? What exactly do you do? Like, what is your day-to-day? What does it look like?
I will first say a speech language pathologist is not someone to magically help somebody talk. I feel like that's the first thing everybody thinks, is that we help somebody go from not being able to talk to talking, which is, definitely something that is capable of us doing, but in communication. And communication is very broad in regards to whether a child is using a AAC device, which helps them communicate, or if a child is making gestures or like pointing. So in regards to what my day-to-day looks like, I currently work at an ABA company with children that have autism. And basically I go in, I prepare a plan on what, the therapy session will look like, just based on like their treatment. Some of my sessions are, honestly, all my sessions is play-based therapy. So I go in, I play. So I really love doing that. What the heavy work really is the documentation after that. So like the notes and things like that. A session will probably look like a specific material I'll bring in for the kids. For example, one thing that I always use is the alphabet letters, just for them to be able to recognize, letter recognition. And then even outside of that, so much things that we could do within therapy just based on whatever materials we use.
So you mentioned that you focus on play-based therapy. What, will you explain what that is? So what is that? What is an alternative that speech pathologists also use?
I'll say play-based therapy in layman terms is honestly playing, following the child's lead, being patient with them, creating that environment so that they know, like, hey, I can be myself, and supporting them in their needs. So again, honestly, just playing, whether it's like emphasizing on what the child is playing with. Let's say a child is playing with a red car. Oh my gosh, you're playing with the red car. Vroom, vroom, vroom. Just things of that nature. I don't know in particular like the alternative, but play-based therapy is exactly what play-based therapy is. So.
Yeah, so that actually makes sense. So I actually have a little brother. He's 8 years old now, and he's nonverbal, and he has autism.
Oh, wow.
So I remember when he was a little younger, we would have like these ABA people. That's what we called them, like his ABA people. They would come to our house, and they would just play with him. Right. And I never understood. So I would ask my mom, like, what are they doing? Like, is this like a play date? Like, so now that you're explaining it more, like making the kids feel comfortable so they can be themselves, that actually makes a lot of sense. Because one thing I have noticed with my brother, he's like starting to say a few words, but he'll like whisper it. So what I started to understand is I feel like he doesn't feel confident to actually say some of the things that he knows how to. So saying all that to say that makes complete sense.
Yeah, no, that's actually very interesting, and I know it could, more than likely be a lot as well. It'd be a lot just navigating all together. So being able to have like that background and being aware of like, oh, this is what they're doing now. Like, yes, we're playing with them, but at the same time, we're building language in a functional, fun way.
Yeah. So what led you to this career path?
Honestly, I'll say God. I'll say God, because funny enough, every time when I get that question, when I say I was on a nursing route at first, people get surprised because they're like, what? But yeah, I was on the nursing track at first, and I didn't leave because it was like hard or anything. I kind of gained more exposure to being an SLP, like through one of my family friends. We was casually having a conversation, and she asked me like, "Hey, have I ever thought about like being a speech pathologist?" I'm like, I don't even know what that is. Like, why would I even think about that? So I don't know. Like, as I started researching more about it, I started praying about it as well because I was like, okay, God, maybe this is what you actually want me to do. I was so like for being a nurse because I just wanted to be in a field where I was helping people and like making that connection and just being an impact. Like that was really important for me because seeing my mom, like she's a whole nurse practitioner, and just seeing how she's able to come home and be rewarded and fulfilled by helping other people. I was like, well, I want to be a nurse, but I mean, that's not what God wanted for me. So yeah, it was honestly God, even after like much prayer and fasting. And then like when I was going through the process of like changing my my major and thing, it was smooth, even though it was still like a difficult route. You know, God definitely like saw me through it. And I started to realize it wasn't just more of a career for me, it's truly my calling. So yeah, I've noticed like with the connections that I've made, even being a speech pathologist, it's very evident like this is where the Lord wants me to be.
That's really beautiful. And I think again having a brother with autism and just kind of seeing all the different like caregivers and people he works with, I think it's important that there are people in these different careers that actually want to be there and we're called to be there, because then they take it. There's a level of seriousness that comes with it that not everybody has. So you can't just be like, oh, I just want to do this. I want to work with kids on the spectrum. You actually have to be engaged with them and into it. So yeah, that's really important. My next question is, from your experience, what are some common communication challenges with children with autism? Because, you know, everyone is different. So what do you see most commonly?
Most commonly, I would say a child not being able to make eye contact. A lot of like eye straightaway movements. I will say expressing themselves, whether it's verbally, non-verbally. Some children have difficulty pointing. Some children have difficulty even uttering a word, let alone maybe just a letter. I also will say another difficulty or like challenges that I see more so every day is a child that is able to speak but also have trouble with topic maintenance, and that looks like not being able to hold a certain topic the entire duration, like forgetting what was even being talked about or straying far away from what was even said to begin with, and not being able to maintain like back and forth conversations. So the way we're able to have this conversation back and forth, children on the autism spectrum, some of them, if they're on like low functioning, whatever the case may be, they're not able to have this kind of dialogue. So we work on things like that.
So my next question is, what are some things that people often misunderstand about autism and communication in general?
I will say the main thing is if a child doesn't speak, they don't have nothing to say, or they don't understand anything you're saying. Many of these kids are so smart. They understand more than you think. Like, they understand more than you think. Just because they're not communicating with it, communicating what they understand verbally doesn't mean they don't understand what you're saying. They all have different forms of communicating. Like I said from the very beginning, whether it's pointing, using a device, or even gestures, pulling your hand, like, they understand. So that's one of the main things that's like, hey, just because they're not speaking doesn't mean they don't understand. And another misunderstanding that I had mentioned earlier is that communication isn't only talking. That doesn't only mean talking. It can mean very many things. It can mean nonverbal and verbal. So it's more so about like the connection and not just speech.
No, I definitely agree with you a lot on that. My brother, again, like, because he's like the closest person I know with autism. It took us a little bit, but by the time we clocked how smart he was, and the thing is, you know, like you said, just because they're not talking doesn't mean they're like completely unaware of what's going on.
Right.
They also know that, you know, there's a bit of a like communication barrier.
Yeah.
So what we notice with my brother is sometimes he'll use that to his advantage.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, like he's so smart and he just gets us, especially me, because like he's just so cute to me. He manipulates me all the time. And I finally started putting two and two together, like, wait. He knows so much.
Exactly what you're doing. Yes.
Like,
they're so smart.
Like, literally. And it's so crazy to me. But it's actually so funny at the same time.
Yes. And it's actually really nice to see, too. Because it's like, hey, you're a human, too.
Exactly.
You're not what your disability is. Yes, it's a label. Yes, you function different than you know, any normal person would. But you're still human. So.
And that's really why I wanted to just open this discourse and have this conversation, because before my brother was born, I heard about autism, but I didn't really know much. So I started to learn more with my personal experience. And I realized that like there's like a huge gap, especially in the Black community, where we don't know how to have conversations and just exist with people that are different than us.
Yeah, very much.
And just even with my brother, like when we're out in public hearing things that people say, seeing how people look, I'm like, this is not okay, because it's more common than you think.
No, very much.
Yeah, and there's like, it's a spectrum.
Yeah.
There could be a person that to you, they're like, oh, they're okay, probably just because they can talk.
Right.
And you're like, oh, they're fine. But yeah, that's why I think it's just so important to have all these conversations, because you got to be able to learn how to read body language and just nonverbal ways of communication. Figure out, you know, what is this person actually saying without them telling you that. I feel like that's super important.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to ask, this is not even one of my questions, but do you work with other kids or other groups of people that don't have autism?
I will say when I was working in an outpatient clinic, I did work with kids that didn't have autism. Like they just generally needed help with like speech, in regards to like articulation, being able to pronounce like certain sounds, like the R word and things like that. So yeah, I did. And even before being in the ABA company, when I was an intern in the school, I was working with children that didn't have autism, but they did have like emotional disability or like intellectual disability and things like that. So I have experience in like, you know, certain you know, areas. Even within while I was in grad school, I did work with adults. So that was also like an experience. But I do have fair share of like working with kids outside of autism. But I'll be very honest, I know the Lord was calling me to stay in the area of working with children with autism. I'm still trying to understand why, but every day I'm closer to that because it's so rewarding. Like just when I see the progress the kids make, I'd be wanting to sit there and cry in front of the parents' face. And sometimes they be looking at me like, girl, you doing a lot. It's not your kid. Yeah. So.
And I love that you brought that up, because my next question is, how has your faith influenced the way you care and you work with your clients?
My faith is at the center of everything that I do. Even within being, you know, even within working with autistic children within my company with everybody. It reminds me of a verse that says in Colossians 4:6, let your conversation always be full of grace. And I make sure that it encourages me to be intentional, not just with my words, but with the families as well. And, you know, within my faith, you know, Jesus Christ, he's love, he's compassionate, and he's patient. So I make sure that I share the same thing. I lead with patience. I have compassion, and I, you know, integrate love in every interaction that I do. Because again, I mean, you have a sibling that is autistic. I work with kids that are autistic, and there is some type of patience that needs to be there.
Yeah.
Like whether the child is high functioning, low functioning, the behaviors they may have, or just knowing that sometimes they can't even say what they want.
Yeah.
Like there's that patience that has to be there. There's that love that has to be there, because some days are tough. Like, and it's some days that's like, okay, yeah, I'm ready to check out. But it's like, no, they need you. So yeah, my faith is very much at the center of everything that I do.
Yeah, that's a really good point that you brought up. And I was literally just thinking about the fruits of the spirit, which one of it is long suffering. And sometimes I think, when we go through certain stuff, the Lord wants us to learn something. And bringing my brother into my life, I feel like patience was literally, like I say it all the time, Lord, help me be patient, help me be patient. When you ask him to do something, he will place you in the situation.
And he still does.
And I feel like with my brother, like patience and I just think kindness, like I learned it on a different level.
Yeah.
Like, because again, it's so easy to just be nice to someone that they're predictable. You know what they're going to do when you do this action, you know what's going to come from it.
Right.
But when you're working with kids with autism, as I'm sure you've noticed, and just even with my brother, you don't know if, today I could give him this and he's okay. Tomorrow he doesn't want it anymore. It could make him cry, So there's literally a level of patience that you absolutely have to have. So yeah, that's definitely a good point. My next question is, what are some simple ways that families can support communication at home that will make your job easier and also help the kid advance more?
I'll definitely say being intentional in every moment, in every day-to-day moments. For example, talking to your child while you're, prepping their meal during bath time, playing with your child, being slow to, force them to answer a question that you may have before them. Having that same patience is very important, and just narrating what your child is doing every single day. That helps. Whether it's, while you guys are playing again, oh my gosh, like, hey, you're playing with this, or hey, mom has a cookie, or, just things like that, will definitely help in regards to families integrating that at home so progress can be made on both ends. Because if I'm only doing my job and it's not being done at home, then there's only going to be but so much progress.
Yeah.
And also rewarding those small moments. Like if a child is pointing and they never done that before, applaud it. All the kids at my job, some of them can't even point. Some of them can't even talk. Some of them can't even wave hi. But the moment they do that, everybody in my job is going to hear me applaud them, because to them now they know, like, oh my gosh, I just did something that is worth continuing to do.
Yeah, was that positive reinforcement?
Yeah, yeah. So that's just being intentional with absolutely everything, and it can be draining, of course, because as a parent that has a child that is autistic, I don't know that. I just work with the child, and I definitely understand like days could be different, but being intentional as much as you can and showing up when you can is very important.
That's really good. My last question is, what is one thing that you wish that people understood about working with kids with autism, or just about kids with autism in general?
One thing I wish people, you said wish people were what?
They understood more.
I wish that they understood that every child is different, and every strength a child has can differ. It varies. Like every child isn't the same. So whatever goal I may have with this child is going to be different for the next child. Even if this child is capable of talking and I have the specific goal with them, doesn't mean that the next child I have is going to have the same goal. So every child is different. But it's very important for us to support them so that they're able to use their voice in the way that they can. So that's what I wish people understood more.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that, especially with the internet, and we have a lot of mothers, fathers sharing their experience with their kids that have autism. And, I see a lot of times in comments, we have other parents like, oh, my kid is doing blah, 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 blah. This means blah, 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 blah. But like you said, every child is different. What this action may mean with your kid might not be the same for another person's child.
Exactly.
So I think that's a really good point to bring up, because we don't want anyone setting any mental milestones that is just far from what the kid has the ability to do.
Right.
So yeah, thank you so much, Josie. You brought definitely a new perspective for me, just looking at autism as a whole. So thank you so much. Do you have any last thoughts or anything you want to share?
I want to say thank you so much, of course, for bringing me onto this.
Of course.
Yeah, I will forever love to be in a space where I'm just speaking about what I do and how I can be a help to other people. Because again, I'm also growing and learning in this space. So I appreciate you for having me in this space and trusting my words. So
of course. Thank you so much. And thank you all for tuning in. Bye.